What's up, Warriors fans, and welcome back to Warriors Latest. As always, I am your host, Max Arizin. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the show today, as I do post new Warriors videos daily, and it helps myself and the channel improve day after day as this show continues to evolve. Now, last night, we got a good win against the Clippers, even though we got that scare in the second quarter by James Harden. We were able to turn it on in the second half and really close things out with that 19-point win. Now, I was a bit surprised it didn't make it to triple digits because the Warriors are an offensive powerhouse. And I wonder if this is something that has to do with the age of the team or just maybe things just weren't clicking that game, but we were able to rebound well from it not hitting, and I'm okay with that. It's more or less just a bit surprising, but I still am happy that the Warriors were able to pull this out against the Clippers because the Clippers were a team I had a lot of concerns about. They were a very deep team, and then just looking at their roster, as I said, they have John Collins, Brook Lopez, Ivan Zubac, James Harden, well, Chris Paul, but even though he's an older Chris Paul. They have Bogdan Bogdanovic. They have a lot of great players there, and they weren't really able to get it going. I mean, looking at the stat numbers now, the points leader for the Clippers was James Harden at 20, who only made 6 of his 15 shots that he took, and only got to the line, 7 times? Or got to the line for 7 shots. Not bad. I did like that Jimmy Butler was extremely efficient going 9 for 12. So that's a big plus in the right direction. It doesn't always have to be the Steph Curry show, and the team can spread things around. I mean, Steph got 19, Draymond only got 7, Jimmy got 21. But what I did like, and I think this is important to note, is Quentin Post got 25 minutes going 4 for 9 from the field, with those 4 coming from the three-point line. Now, I do like that in the sense it's like, all right, he's a stretch big that creates better spacing, and I believe that's important, but only 2 shots from the post. That's funny. But only 2 shots from the post, a little concerning because you want guys who can really man the middle, and you come to the playoff time, you're not entirely sure he's going to be physical enough to go with those guys again, like Joker, which we did have some success against in last week, but we had to pull it out in overtime. Or even let's see how he does against the likes of Wemby coming next month. Now, and after their hot start, that's going to be a problem. So I know that he could stretch the floor, but when you're going up against like the powerhouse teams, I don't know if that's going to be as effective as you think it is when like certain teams have 2 big men. You look at what's it called? You look at Dallas. You look at Oklahoma City. You look at Houston. They have 2 bigs that can guard both Draymond and Quentin Post and create problems for both of them. So I'm still hesitant, though I do like how he is getting more minutes. 25 this game, maybe next game he'll get even more, maybe even, let's say, 28 to 30. I think that's going to be a big step forward. Al Horford, he played that rotation. It was pretty simple. Horford got 21 minutes. I like that because it's like, all right, you're not giving Al too many minutes at his ripe old age of 39, but he's still getting additional minutes to prove that he does belong with this team and that he can be an asset for when the Warriors win. But I do like this rotation. They still do need one more piece in that, or one or more pieces to really add to that front court because this backcourt depth, while it's good to have a surplus, it's going to be a problem when spreading the minutes around. Even though I did like how Pods has continued to improve, looking at his numbers, he only went 5 for 10, which is impressive. 50% from the field, 2 for 6 from 3. All right, I like where this is going. 5 rebounds and 4 assists for 12 points. All right, that's another good outing. He's starting to fill it out on other sides of the stat sheet. And looking at Kuminga, not his best showing. 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 for 11 from the field. Not the best showing, but I'll take it. They're learning how to mesh, and that is important. But speaking of guys who can update the front court, we've got an old friend who recently hit the free agent market. And before you start hating on me, hear me out, because I'm talking about none other than the Warriors 2020 bust, James Wiseman. Now, we say bust because you look who was taken in front of him. and Anthony Edwards. You look at LaMelo Ball, who was taken after him, and you look who was taken way after him at, I believe it was the 12th or 13th pick, in Tyrese Halliburton. Now, let's be honest, Halliburton was never going to get drafted that high. Yes, we could have gone for LaMelo, but I just don't think LaMelo would be a great fit with the Warriors should he have been drafted there. And I don't think he would have contributed to a championship team that won in 2022. I know that James Wiseman didn't contribute all that much, but I mean, LaMelo would have taken away minutes from guys like I want to say even Klay Thompson, some from Steph, some of those backup guys. But it is interesting to think about, should they have taken LaMelo next year, if they do or don't make the playoffs. They had the Timberwolves pick. Do they pick Kuminga? Do they pick Moses Moody? I don't know. But it's interesting to think about because of how things could have played out. Now, looking at the draft in 2021, let me get that up real quick. I'm thinking of the first few picks. They could have had Franz Wagner. And I think that was the biggest drawback in terms of selecting players, because a lot of the team wanted Franz Wagner, Joe Lacob wanted Jonathan Kuminga, and eventually the owner always wins out. So with potentially having Franz Wagner and LaMelo Ball, that could be an interesting team, but I don't know how that fits together. And I don't want to speculate on certain things like that, because I don't know how that could have played out, because they're both great players individually, but as a collection, you don't know if they're going to mix like they're going to mix like peanut butter and jelly, or they're going to mix like kerosene in a match. I mean, it could go anyway. Now, let's look at these draft picks from 2021, and it's like, all right, they could have gotten Alperen Şengün. That's a big thing. And you know what? They could have potentially traded up, trading both the 7 and the 14 to get either the 2 or the 3, and gotten Evan Mobley. Now, looking outside of that, you look at who was taken after Kuminga. We know Franz Wagner. Davion Mitchell, not a good fit. Zaire Williamson, nope. Josh Primo, definitely not. Chris Duarte, no. Alperen Şengün, yes, but again, he was taken outside of the lottery. So I'm not really too confident. And looking at how at least they operate, how the Warriors operated back then, they weren't in the same mindset that, say, Howie Roseman of the Philadelphia Eagles is, where if he doesn't see a guy he likes at a certain pick, he's more than willing to trade back, get additional assets, and see how far back it could go to get at least a solid rotation player. That wasn't the mindset of the Warriors, and I just didn't see them trading back 2 spots to get Alperen Şengün if they kept both the 7 and the 14 pick. Now, they could have picked Şengün at the 14, but then again, Şengün's from Turkey. You look at it, he played at Besiktas. Besiktas. I keep pronouncing that wrong, but I'll get it eventually. And with those Turkish teams, you always have to take it with a grain of salt, because, like I've said this before, for every Kristaps Porzingis, for every Luka Doncic that you get, for every Victor Wembanyama that you get 25 Dragon Benders. Like, a lot of guys aren't going to pan out. Now, as the game continues to evolve and European guys are coming into the league and starting to dominate, yes, you can take those risks. But back in 2021, little too much of a gamble, especially when you're trying to extend that window for both Steph and Klay. So I get what they were going with, and hindsight is always 2020. But back to James Wiseman. Now, Wiseman, free agent, he was let go by the Pacers for Mac McClung, and now he's a free agent. Now, Warriors may be tied up financially until next month, but they can find a way to reduce their spending by trading away some of their guards. I mean, trading away not so much Pods, but maybe Buddy Hield to get something in return. I know there are probably plenty of teams that could use Buddy Hield and can also trade away a trade exception to bring him in, and then they have a little extra wiggle room to work with. Bring in Wiseman on a cheap contract, along with Seth Curry, who's coming back next month. And then they have additional backcourt. Now, Wiseman is not the same player he was when he left the Warriors. Wiseman was injury prone. When he left to Detroit, he showed promise, but unfortunately with Indiana, he tore his ACL. He's gotten that repaired, but he could still play legitimate minutes at the 5, and he's still shown, when given the opportunity, he could be a guy that is a post presence, more of an athletic post presence, but a post presence nonetheless. I believe he was like 8 and 8 when he was playing like high minutes with the Pistons, so that's a big plus for me. And he already knows the system that he would be coming into with Steve Kerr. Not much has changed since he left the Warriors, so I would assume he would be able to integrate himself faster versus a big man who has to take time to learn the system. Because when you're going up against certain teams, you're going to need more than one 7-footer. And one of those teams you're going to need more than one 7-footer is the team we play next, the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Bucks, they're showing that they don't need Dame Lillard to start off the season. They're doing pretty well. It's back to being Giannis's team, and having support like Miles Turner is showing to be effective. They just beat the Knicks last night by 10, and they beat them handily. The Knicks weren't in sync, and the Bucks were able to take advantage of that. Now, going up against the Bucks on Thursday, they're going to be a problem, and I am a little concerned because it's in Milwaukee. The Warriors are small. Yes, Jimmy always has had Giannis's number dating back to 2019, but that not having that like solid big man and not being 100% sure if Al Horford's going to play, I am a little concerned about this game because you want to keep the momentum going through Halloween, going into November, and continue to attack, because that's how the Warriors are going to win the title this season. Keep the momentum going to the point where they become an unstoppable force. And they just roll through every single opponent the same way they did when they went 73-9, the same way they did both seasons they went 67-15. They need to just keep attacking, and not having that big may put things in doubt, but I still think the Bucks are going to have their hands full with the Warriors, and the Warriors are going to win out this Thursday. Now, bottom line is, again, we're off to a strong start, but these adjustments are going to have to be made. Something is going to have to be done about this depth in the backcourt. You can't have so many small guys and expect to win a title. Yes, they are. There's a lot of good talent with Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, Pat Spencer, Paz, Will Richard. That's all great. But a lot of these guys, they're on less than favorable contracts that are creating problems for the team. So why not move them around? It's time to move them around and get a guy who can be an asset to the team in the front court, whether that be the 3, 4, or 5, something that can really help with the rebounding. Now, the rebounding has been great so far, but I feel like a lot of it has been done by the backcourt guys, not so much the front court guys. A little bit by Draymond, a little bit by Al Horford, a little bit by Jimmy, but he's more of a backcourt guy, and a little bit by Quentin Post. We need to dominate the rebounding game by a lot every single game. I was looking at some of the stats the other day. The rebounding game has been pretty close. Now, if we just blow them out in the rebounding game and continue to keep the offense up, I have no doubt in my mind that we will destroy every single team that even tries the Warriors, and we will dominate all the way to another NBA title. So let's get this done. Let's make those adjustments and get this win versus the Bucks. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the show today, as it does help myself and the show as we continue to grow through this season. And if you have any comments on who else the Warriors should acquire, whether it be free agent market or the trade market, should they trade Buddy and a few other players, feel free to comment below, as I do love hearing your ideas. And as always, go Dubs.